Technological Officer at ZALORA, how would you define the state of technology within the retail sector today?
I think within the whole retail industry, different brands are at a different level of technology evolution at the moment. There are those who are digital natives who have started out with a very broad technological footprint once a brand got launched, and I would definitely say that we are part of that generation. But then there's also brands who started a little bit earlier, or even much earlier, and for them, it's, I think, a bit more difficult to keep up with the technological trends that happened in particular in the last 10 years. So if your tech stack is still consisting of some programming languages, which were maybe cutting edge 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you build your business on top of that, it's not trivial to change course. And it requires a lot of work and refactoring. And sometimes we can help our brand partners to make a leap forward. But other times we just have to find also compromise, how to adapt to depending on how digital our brand partners are. Yeah, so overall, I would say it's a mixed basket within the retail industry. Everyone has their own challenges, and I think one thing that we all have in common is that technology is advancing so fast that at times you really feel like it's so hard to keep up.
Right. Now, when we go into the next few months or even years, to put into context, how do you think, now that we're in the age of post-pandemic, how do you think the COVID-19 has impacted technological advancements, or would you say that it's even contributed to the acceleration of technology today?
I would definitely say it has contributed to the acceleration so much in various areas. So if we're just thinking about our work environment, I lately was part of a panel discussion where we discussed with some peers how their internal structure, internal communication, collaboration had to adapt very, very fast to the pandemic and lockdowns and working from home situations. And within a matter of, for some days, for some it took weeks, but now that we are already several months into the pandemic, I see a huge shift how comfortable people are with using video solutions. There's a lot more, webinars and recorded sessions, just like what we're doing at the moment, compared to what previously was. And I think that's becoming, that has already become a part of our life. And I also believe that it doesn't go away whenever there is such a state, like the pandemic is over, if there is ever such a thing, or when the new normal, as we call it, arrives. I think there will be a mix of some of the old things and a shift in terms of behavior and how we interact as people, in particular in the workplace. But also how we do business. I think people will get, even though we were already very globalized before, in the way that people are doing business, we were already very much in a globalized world before. But the different technologies and the push to use them and to ramp up, even for industries which were not so digitalized yet, I think is definitely changing the playing field and leveling things out more. And it's awesome for any technology company as well, because suddenly they have a much broader audience. There's a much bigger scale. There's a huge opportunity for them to grow fast. And this is something that we also experience at ZALORA very much, with how new customers are trying out, shopping on our platform, getting familiar with us, getting accustomed, and then hopefully also staying with us for the years to come. That's what we're working on really hard.
Great. Something else that I want to touch on as well. As we're going into a very digitized world, there's a lot of talk about people being a little bit desensitized from, being in touch with reality, being in touch with the real world. Now, how can technology actually bridge the gap between the outside world and, what's emotionally here that we have with ourselves? Because that's one of my biggest concerns, as a consumer. If I want to go shopping or if I even want to interact with anyone, there's that emotional touch that it's missing. How can
Yeah.
technology bridge the gap?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all that the lack of this face-to-face interaction makes us more aware of how important it is and how much we appreciate it, right? And I think then that awareness can also change the way we look at technology, especially any communication or social technology, and we embed it more and more in our lives. And it's not the same thing as a face-to-face interaction. It's different kind of quality. It's a different flavor, and it adds. Now that we're also going to talk about virtual or augmented reality, it adds some new elements in there, which we are being pushed to explore a bit more and to try it out and to see how that feels. And I think the end result of that all is going to be a mix that there's more appreciation and maybe even an elevation of the face-to-face contact, and in the context of retail, when that customer and brand interaction is happening. And at the same time, when the opportunity is not there, there's a digital experience that people also appreciate and that they embed in their day-to-day life. So I think both things will coexist, and we will just be more aware of the differences and have more choices also when to decide like which one is our preference.
Augmented reality can take shopping experiences to the next level.
I think we've already seen some fantastic examples in the industry. Just to name a few, I think when we're talking about the category of accessories, there's very good technologies out there when it comes to trying on glasses or also makeup or maybe shoes. These technologies are already working really well. And I think what's given it a big push in terms of advancement was also how people are using filters and some of these gimmicks on social media like Instagram and Facebook. I think that definitely has pushed the advancement of augmented reality then for fashion or for retail even further, and we're already benefiting from that. And then on the other hand, there's still a couple of things which are very much in development, like when it comes, for example, to trying on a whole outfit or that full body shot. There, we're still not there yet from a quality perspective or from a point of view where it becomes of people's everyday life. But I do strongly believe that it's only a matter of time of I don't know, it could be as close as maybe like a year or maybe 2 to 3 years until we get there.
Brick and mortar stores, would still be relevant in those 1-2 years time.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, I think as people, we still have this urge for the human touch and like a face-to-face interaction. And yeah, for me, it's not a matter of like, is digital going to replace the retail store experience? It's much more about how do the two coexist, and how can we design and frame each experience in a way so that it's very distinguishable and that it brings out the best parts of what the customer actually wants and enjoys in both interactions. So it can be in the digital experience. Yeah, maybe it's getting a bit more, playful, with some filters or any other augmented reality effects. And in the offline world, the focus will be probably a lot more on the human interaction, and how to facilitate that and how to really cherish that and bring that out in the moment. Yeah. So
Right.
maybe one shift that we will see is that uh, retail stores, physical stores, will be crafted in a lot more with a lot more thought. Maybe also personalized more, depending on the location, and not be like a copy of one another, depending on in which shopping mall or in which city you are.
Right. What do you think augmented reality can also help benefit consumers? Because I'm thinking, if I go into a store, I could see what a pair of sunglasses would look like, and therefore it would just eliminate the amount of time that I spent, outside. So instead of browsing through it, few shelves, I know immediately what I want. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be wearing, I want these pair of sunglasses. I go in and I pop out, so how I would see AR benefiting consumers. What other points do you think that it would also benefit us?
Yeah, that's definitely a point. I think for those people who already know what they want, it's like a quick thing. I try it on, not so much distraction with all the other things which are on the shelf or even on the way to get to the store. I think that's actually a second point that. If you can do it from the comfort of your home or literally everywhere on the go, try on something that you're interested in, it saves you a lot of time. And that's what we focus on also with the ZALORA experience, to make it as convenient as possible for our customers to browse products, to find inspiration, to place their order, and then also everything that's happening afterwards with regards to the delivery experience, the return process, or any questions that the customer might have.
Well, last night I watched the Prada show online, and it was a virtual show. And then because now it's Milan Fashion Week, and I used to go to Fashion Week quite a lot, and now there's this huge debate on whether or not there should be a runway show, like a physical runway show, as opposed to a virtual show.
Mm.
And another brand that I just saw recently, GCDS, the entire show was made in VR. So everything was completely made in VR. And I don't know whether at some point, whether or not, the retail industry would somehow skew towards that. I know, runway shows are very different from, e-commerce stores, but whether everything else is just going to be completely digitized and we end up in a Black Mirror situation. There's always that like
Yeah.
fear in my head. I don't know what
Yeah.
are your thoughts about that.
Yeah. I think, what I've observed in the past is that these developments go sometimes a little bit zigzag. So we go like extremely virtual and like, yeah, everything in virtual reality and everything distributed, and then maybe bouncing back to the very close and one room interaction. And what that zigzag actually does is that, yeah, people uh, develop a better sense for, how which part they enjoy. And in the end, it's sort of, the pendulum kind of like swings both ways and then lands somewhere in the middle. So as soon as this, the virtual reality or also augmented reality, as soon as those technologies reach a certain maturity level, which I think especially augmented reality already has. And in virtual reality, it depends a little bit. I've seen good quality, I've seen like not so good quality. So I think there's still a bit of development to do. But these elements will always be embedded, whether it's in a fashion show or also with the retail shop experience, and then don't really go away. And I think it just gives designers and in particular creative people just more options to pick from, how to put a vision together and how to craft an experience.
Right. I mean, you yourself have a virtual background, which is very apt considering, your position.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of the tiny shifts I think that we've seen in the last couple of months. I didn't use this feature so much in the past, even though I spent already a lot of time on calls, on video calls, with my team and with partners across the region. But only in the last couple of months, it's become this playful thing every day. Like, okay, it's kind of like, which t-shirt am I wearing today? Okay, what kind of background am I picking, and what fits the occasion? And I have a little collection on my laptop here.
Amazing.
I'm picking pictures, depending what fits my mood or fits the moment.
Right. Now, going back to businesses, right? What do you think are the key factors that businesses should consider prior to adopting augmented reality, or even, any technological advancements that they would consider to adopt?
Yeah. Well, I can share a little bit how we approach this at ZALORA, because we build a lot of technology ourselves, but we also always look for strong partners to work with. So when trying out something new, I think the first thing is to really look around. What are some of the fantastic companies out there who have already built a similar product to what you want to use? And then to maybe go for a first try, a proof of concept, and to develop the idea further from there. Sometimes companies jump straight at like a big investment, and some companies have the tendency that they want to build everything on their own. And I am definitely very tempted to do that too, because I love building tech products. But then, from a business perspective, I think you need to weigh different things of whether the investment is worth it. Is this really the core strength of your company as well, to build it in-house? Or does it make sense to go with a partner? And going with a partner can also mean maybe just for the first couple of baby steps, and then building that competency in-house. Or sometimes it means also really partnering up with someone very specialized in the long run. And at ZALORA, how we decide on certain technological choices is actually exactly following this framework as well.
Cool. What would be the current challenges of augmented reality?
I think some of the challenges, especially in Southeast Asia, might be the network and bandwidth connections. Although, with the launch of 5G being pushed globally in various countries, I think that we're already hopefully quite close to, overcoming that hurdle. And the hurdle is even a bit bigger for virtual reality, just because it's a bit more of a heavy application. So that's one thing that I can think of. And then also, as this technology becomes easier to use and a lot of people are going to embed it, I think we're going to see also various levels of quality. And, some might be not so good, others might be better. So this will take a time, and it's maybe some growing pains that we're going through already right now, but that might also, I would say, level out in a hopefully rather short period of time.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned how technological or even internet access is a growing contribution to all this, or if not a contribution, it's more or less it affects it. How do you think the Southeast Asian consumer, how do they approach the entire online landscape compared to the rest of the world, or even other Asian countries from like China and Japan and all that? I'm pretty sure Southeast Asians are completely special on their own way. We're very unique people.
Yeah, I mean, just the matter of fact that some of the countries like Philippines and Indonesia are so spread out across various islands, distributed, across the country, and not everyone is like in the big city where they have easy access to all the brands, etc. So for a lot of our customers, being online is the only way to interact with a fashion with our customer base. There's definitely some behavior which is not expected by someone who's building a tech product for a customer in Europe or in the US. And at ZALORA, we're constantly checking and making sure that our products are optimized for such low bandwidth environments. And most of the time, it's really, like you said, the internet is also the only way for someone to interact with a brand, because they don't have access to go to a retail store in a bigger city and then get that brand consumer interaction. So everything has to happen digitally. And yes, we rely a lot on whether the infrastructure is built out well or not, or rather the other way around. Anyone who is designing and developing an online experience has to certainly take that into account. What is it like if it's not like a 5G connection or like a super fast broadband? The experience should still be, a good one and one that the customer enjoys and likes to return to.
That's interesting. I would never have thought that the different bandwidths, we need to take that into consideration, because coming from, living in KL, 4G, 5G is kind of like the norm, but I would never have considered, in remote areas where they probably don't have 4G even, probably just still LTE or 3G, and that's it. But it's interesting how ZALORA even approaches, such bandwidth disparities, because it's not what normal people would think about. Everything has to be approached at a very like a parallel kind of, I don't know, how do I say it? It's all got to be the same. We
Yeah,
all have
yeah.
to be on our phones and see the same screens. We all, I mean, what I'm seeing right now, my screen would probably be the same on someone else's screen who's living in like remote island, but I'm on 4G and that person's on like 3G, and that's very
Yeah.
interesting how you have to perceive it in such ways.
Yeah, and we are tracking this also. I mean, we are using various analytics and monitoring tools to really check the performance, where you can simulate what does it look like if you're in not such a stable environment or don't have like a very good and fast internet connectivity. And that's the kind of customer or user that we need to design for, because it's much easier if you're living in a big city and designing for someone who has a fast internet connection. So those are some of the core principles that our engineers look at when we're building software and when we're designing the shopping experience at ZALORA.
Do you think that the pandemic is going to accelerate it even further? The more that people are staying indoors, more reliant we are on our mobile phones, it's going to accelerate this whole e-retail landscape.
Yeah, and I do not just believe so, but there have been a lot of studies coming out lately, also from various consulting firms, or also from some of the big digital companies, which are saying that e-commerce penetration is accelerating so much, and a couple of other industries and sectors as well, that the numbers are really breathtaking. I mean, I'm surprised myself also how much people are at the moment sort of almost like correcting the predictions that they made last year or the year before, and saying like, oh, okay, no, guys, like this is going even faster because of the pandemic. Big shift that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, despite it's a double-edged sword at the end of the day, we're going through such uncertain times and such terrible times, but at the end of the day, there's this positive outlook, I guess, for businesses to leverage on at the end of the day. So fingers crossed for the future. And thank you so much, Sylvia. It's been a great pleasure just talking to you this afternoon, and very great insight into this realm that I don't really understand because I'm not a tech person.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Awesome questions. Thanks
Yeah,
a lot.
thank you so much, Sylvia.